my biggest advice to students is to really formulate a schedule or a routine. And it will take some time to, work the kinks out of that. So students need to sometimes be reminded to give themselves some grace as they are working through that. But it is really important to recognize the balance between your academics and then your extracurriculars. So making sure that there is time after school every day to get homework done, but that there's also time for the things that you enjoy doing. And then also for some activities where you can help to kind of release any stress that you might be experiencing.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Dutchko. The goal of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast is to give you the story of the ninth grade students here at Emmaus High School and beyond through the people who live it daily, the students and the staff. We will attempt to touch on the real issues and stories that ninth grade students face in order to prepare them to know that ninth grade counts. On today's episode, we have our two ninth grade school counselors, Mrs. Demchak and Mr. McInerney, back for one of their multiple appearances here on the podcast that we'll link to in the show notes for all the previous episodes that they've been on. They're here to discuss what's been going on at the first month of school and to talk about the introduction to Naviance presentation they'll be giving next Tuesday at 6:30 in the auditorium for your parents to get introduced to our guidance system to help you to be ready for college and beyond. So we'll be talking about that. But before we get into that episode, just to touch on a couple of other things that are going on in the school here. As you are aware, many clubs and activities have started upgoing, mostly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So don't forget to sign up for the late bus before 10:30 on those days if you want to go. Remember, you don't have to go to every club every time. You can go and check out different ones and see which one might be best for you. Also, we have the upcoming homecoming events, which will be in October. The dance is October 9th. We'll talk more about that as we get a little bit closer. And then homecoming week is the 12th through the 15th of October. So lots of different themes and different things that go on during that time. So if you want to get in contact with us or if you want to be involved in this show, there's a few ways you can do that. We started this past week our ninth grade experience folder on our Schoology Class of 2025 page. It's a white folder. So you can go into that. You can look for all the updates, the link to the show. And there's also a message board there that you can participate in. So if you would like to give us some feedback on the show or answer some of the questions that we post there, that you go to there through your Schoology page, you would answer the questions, and then we can read them on the air, or maybe we'll even bring you on for a full episode. So that's on the Class of 2025 Schoology page. You can always go to ninthgradeexperience.com to reach out and watch all the previous episodes from the past 3 years of the show. You can also take a look at on anywhere where you download podcasts. So that would be Apple or Spotify or anything like that. Or you can watch all of them on our YouTube channel. If you just go search Ninth Grade Experience Podcast in YouTube, it will come up for all the episodes that we've been able to do live video for. So we hope that you enjoy this episode today with Mr. McInerney and Mrs. Demchak, your two school counselors. If you haven't gotten to meet them yet, this will be your first opportunity to get to know a little bit about them and to see what they are up to. So enjoy today's episode, and we look forward to talking with you again next week. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast. As we refer to them in the past, these are some of our most highest appearing guests on the show. We always reach out to our school counselors at the beginning of the year, probably in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year, and whenever something comes up. So we have Mr. McInerney and Mrs. Demchak, who I believe are making their 6th and 7th appearances on the show. I forgot to count before we started today. But if you want to learn more about them and their own ninth grade experience, there's lots of different episodes for them in the archives. But today we're going to focus on the 21-22 ninth grade experience and some cool things that are coming up. So Mr. McInerney and Mrs. Demchak, thanks a lot for taking some time out for us this morning.
Thanks for having us again.
Yep, thank you.
So usually we ask our guests about their ninth grade experience and what that was like. So why don't you give us a little bit of a taste of what the beginning month, since we're almost at a month now, the first month of the ninth grade experience for the class of 2025 has been back in the building, new schedule, adjusting to all the different stuff. How has it been in the world of the school counseling?
Okay, I'll kick this off. I would just say you already said the word adjustment. I would say, for students, parents, and faculty alike, as we know with COVID, that we not only have ninth graders coming up and learning a brand new building, but a lot of our 10th graders. So I don't know if I would say half the building, but it somewhat feels that way. We're trying to get acclimated as to where their classes are located. And then for a lot of them, and I would say, it's probably a national issue, people learning how to school, quote unquote, how to come here, be organized, follow a schedule on top of our new AB blocks. So how about you, Mrs. Demchak?
Yes, I would definitely say that it is a transition period. And I think it really is important to recognize that is a transition period for not just the students. So thank you for pointing that out, Mr. McInerney. Teachers are trying to get back into the swing of things. And so are parents and families, right? Now it's, getting students onto the buses, and maybe the bus times are different. And you've got to think about packing a lunch and, who needs to be where and when. And so we're all working through that right now. And this is probably about the time where hopefully most families and students and teachers have started to figure out what's working and what's not working, and establish that back to school routine.
So, for many of our freshmen that are watching this, say their parents or students, this may be the first time they're getting to see you in person. They've kind of, well, in person on a Zoom, but they've heard the name probably. So, just take a second and just kind of introduce like what part of the alphabet you work on. And I think I asked you this in one of the previous episodes that you were on. And the answer was pretty funny, but can you tell everyone where the counseling office is for them to stop by if they need to? And we'll talk about that procedure in a little bit, but just like introduce like which part of the alphabet you work with and where you are in the building.
Awesome. So I'm Mrs. Demchak. This is my 23rd year working here at Emmaus High School. I work with ninth graders whose last names are from A through K. Our office is located kind of like in the middle of the math hallway. We are diagonal from Mr. Annoni's office. Mr. Annoni is one of the assistant principals. We are on like the mid floor in the original high school building.
And I'm Mr. McInerney, also the other ninth grade counselor. I work with students with last names at the end of the alphabet, letters L through Z. So as Mrs. Demchak said, and on others we're on the second floor, but we're about halfway between the building and the math hallway.
And all of our school counselors are located in the counseling suite, I think is what it's officially called. And I think you did a good job describing where it is. It's always tough to kind of tell everyone exactly where it is. It's kind of in that corner spot. There's a pole in front of it, so it's kind of like a little bit offset. And if you're coming around the side, you see the guidance billboards or bulletin boards that are there as well too, that usually display lots of cool stuff about either career readiness or just being ready back to school, those kinds of things. So as the school counselors, obviously you're dealing with a lot here at the beginning of the school year. So what is it exactly that you would help a student with, or if a student is struggling in a certain area? One, how do they access you? And two, what are some of the things that you would suggest that a student potentially would come down and see their school counselor about?
Okay, so there's a lot in that. So what can we help students with? Usually it is divided into three main categories, which would be first and foremost academic, then personal social, and career. Right now, I would say we are helping students, the most popular topics are academic, right? Just like the course load, understanding the schedule, And also maybe some personal social stuff, like just getting that adjustment to A, high school, and B, the new academic demands with the AB block schedule. What did I forget? There was a third question, right?
The other question is how do students access the counseling office?
Okay, you want to take that, Mr. McInerney?
Yep, sure. Number one, it's anyone is more than welcome to come down if you can find us, and hopefully you can come down and make an appointment with one of our ladies up front. If we are available, sometimes we can see you at that moment. If not, we can schedule with you because we are in quite a few meetings. Also through Schoology or via email. So there's probably the top three ways of getting a hold of us.
So you talked about the three different aspects: the academic, the social and emotional, and the career readiness. We'll talk about the career readiness at the end when we talk about some events that are coming up for parents and for students. But the social emotional aspect, or just kind of what are students, I assume that would be the area so far in the school year that people are coming down to see you the most for, because it's, it's been an adjustment. Some students haven't been in a school building since March of 2020. And has that been like kind of the number one area that you've been seeing students on? And if so, like, do you have any tips or suggestions for students before they come to see you, kind of working through some of these things on their own? And then if they have some struggles, being like, oh, okay, now I think I might need to contact my counselor.
Certainly, I would encourage students to come down because we definitely enjoy meeting them and obviously helping them. That's why we are here. But there are, yes, some things that students can do at home. I would definitely say my biggest advice to students is to really formulate a schedule or a routine. And it will take some time to, work the kinks out of that. So students need to sometimes be reminded to give themselves some grace as they are working through that. But it is really important to recognize the balance between your academics and then your extracurriculars. So making sure that there is time after school every day to get homework done, but that there's also time for the things that you enjoy doing. And then also for some activities where you can help to kind of release any stress that you might be experiencing. Coming into this school year with all of the changes that are inherent in ninth grade, plus all the baggage from the pandemic, really is causing some students to have some anxiety. And it's important for students to recognize that anxiety in healthy doses is very good for you because it lets you know that you care about certain things, and it lets you know that, hey, you know what, this is going to be a new experience and my body's kind of recognizing that. And so I know Mr. McInerney and I like to remind students of that and just sometimes even educate them about that. And let them know that we're all going to work through it together. I think that is a really important message as well. So those are some of the things that I am talking to students about. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else.
Sure. Yes, I mean, students adjusting to the high school, we are seeing an uptick in students who are anxious and dealing with the adjustment. We always focus with ninth graders on two topics, and that would be time management, with which Mrs. Demchak already mentioned, really taking a look at your personal calendar and family calendar and trying to figure out when will I sit down and review notes, study for upcoming tests, work on projects. We know that the AB block is an adjustment for many, including ourselves, but it also goes back to the premise that action cures fear. And we do understand that when students get anxious, sometimes they feel paralyzed, but coming up with a plan and committing to a schedule as to when you're going to get the work done can help alleviate some of those anxieties. I would say the second thing that we always bring up with ninth graders is self-advocacy. If you are struggling, if you don't understand something in class, please reach out to your teachers. Please reach out to myself or Mrs. Demchak. We do understand as students who are 14, it can be awkward speaking to adults. So for those who tend to be more on the shy side, feel free to email or send us a message via Schoology, and we would be happy to help you.
Yeah, it's interesting, the self-advocacy piece. I was talking with some teachers probably last week, and it's interesting because we were on Zoom last year, and I think it was so much easier for students to ask questions in the Zoom format. I feel like I'm not getting as many questions or ask for help this year because people are live back in the building. So it's interesting that I think a lot of students did feel that sense last year of, no one, like I can ask my teacher privately, no one needs to know. And it's hopefully, through what you're encouraging students to do and just kind of the teachers as well, just kind of encouraging people to, advocate for themselves, ask questions, and know that it's okay if they don't understand something. But I think that's kind of something that we've been seeing in the classroom, is that that's a huge gap between people feeling that comfort online versus the comfort in the physical building as well too. So as we kind of touch on some of the other things here, and also too, it's funny listening to your message since we've had you on so many times, the consistency in what you've been saying time after time, pandemic, no pandemic, home, not at home. It's always about that schedule. It's always about the consistency. It's always about finding the time and those kinds of things. So if you do go back and listen to any of the older episodes, you're going to hear some repeats of some stuff here, but it's all stuff that is tried and true, and hopefully will work for you. So one of the reasons that you all are on today as well too, in addition to our beginning of the year check, is to talk about some upcoming events for that third piece, which you talked about, which was the career readiness piece. We started our message board on the Schoology Class of 2025 page, and one of the students responded that her and her friends are already thinking about college and what they need to do, which is, we're 1 month in and people are writing that. So I think some of the stuff we'll talk about now is kind of college related. So why don't you tell everyone, the parents that are listening, and kind of previewing to the students what you have upcoming on September 28th in the auditorium.
I'll just jump in, and then Mrs. Demchak, if you want to take the back end. Just the first couple things that stick out in my mind is that when freshmen come in here, we are always thinking about the end in mind. And I know for some freshmen, they think, wow, you're already talking about me leaving Emmaus High School. But besides the 4 years going quick, as we know, when you come to high school, everything counts. Your grades, your GPA, earned credits for graduation. So when you come in as freshmen and you're adjusting to this big building, we're constantly planning with the end in mind. So in terms of parents and students thinking about careers and colleges, that's awesome. However, on the other side of the coin is that it's perfectly normal for freshmen who are 14, 15, and even for some sophomores and juniors. Heck, we even have some seniors. It is very difficult to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life. So not knowing is totally normal. We usually get a lot of parents who get anxious because their child has no clear direction. And that's when we'll talk about Naviance, which is an excellent tool so students can research, learn more about their personalities and their interests and career clusters.
Right. And that the Naviance software is introduced to students early on in the 9th grade year, and also to their parents. Naviance is a web-based post-secondary planning tool. And one of the biggest things that we focus on in the 9th grade is helping students through the process of self-discovery. So what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my likes? What are my dislikes? And then how do those kind of meld into some potential, career options? Mm-hmm. The Career Readiness Initiative is a state mandate. It is something that students are receiving lessons in from grades K through 12. And we will be beginning our process with the 9th graders in October, but we will start with their parents actually on September 28th, which is next Tuesday, with our 9th grade parent introduction to Naviance night. It's going to start at 6:30 p.m. and it is taking place in the auditorium.
So that will be the first rollout of that, and I've been on Naviance this year. It seems like they've updated it a little bit. They've added some new surveys. I think there were only 4 in the past. Now it seems like there are 6. So it seems like there's going to be some even a better chance for students to go a little bit more in depth with like figuring out some of the things that they're interested in. Some different kinds of surveys, it looked like, and actually the whole interface looked a little bit different too. So if you're a parent listening and you've been on Naviance before, it might be helpful for a little refresher on Naviance, because I think it might be different. And then if you're a 9th grader in October, you'll definitely want to be paying attention to that. So Naviance is a web-based thing, and there are parts of it that are part of the requirement for the career readiness requirement as well too. So I'm pretty sure you probably talk about that when you go through all the different stuff too.
Yes, we will. And yes, the layout has definitely changed. It's kind of was given like a facelift, if you will. And it was also kind of designed to be a little bit more mobile friendly, because there is an app. There's an app for a lot of things. So we are learning the process right now, and a lot of these assessments have also been renamed. So we feel a little bit like we're like the 9th graders this year getting exposed to it again for the first time. But Naviance is a wonderful tool. The possibilities with the software are really, really endless for the career exploration part, which is really, really nice. And we will, as you mentioned, work our kind of plan in conjunction with Naviance and then some other tools to help the students meet their career readiness standards.
So just as a reminder, that is Tuesday at 6:30 in the auditorium. If I'm a parent listening or watching and I can't make it, will there be like a link to a website? Is there going to be any other way that I can get that information?
They can reach out to us and we can provide them with the information that they'll need. Yeah.
Okay. So we thank Mr. McInerney and Mrs. Demchak for taking some time out this morning to A, reintroduce themselves or introduce themselves, and B, kind of talk about those issues, related to career readiness, to social emotional learning, and even the academic piece as well too. This will not be the last time you hear from them this year. They're tough to track down, but when we get a hold of them onto the podcast, they give great information out. Who knows, with midterms coming back, maybe our next chance to check in will be around that midterm time when we kind of give you the lowdown on how to prepare for midterms, even though they're a little different than the way they have been in the past. But that would be helpful to even maybe review at that point. So thanks a lot for joining us. And if something comes up, hopefully we can grab you on for a couple of minutes. But other than that, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thank you.